Our next speaker will discuss a similar topic, but from a much different perspective. As the operator of the Open Masters program, which helps self-directed learners create peer-reviewed higher education in small groups, he pursues visions in education from a grassroots level. He organizes experimental peer-led courses that focus on the contributions of all participants rather than the direct instruction of one teacher. Additionally, he works to build, connect, and grow the open education ecosystem through the project Educate 2020. Please welcome Alan Webb, class of 2007, to the TEDxUVA stage.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Yeah? How many of you have ever fallen asleep in a lecture? Raise your hand. I've slept in a lot of lectures here at UVA. I know the feeling. How many of you all have ever taken a class without any idea why you're taking it? Wow. So I'm passionate about self-directed learners. Self-directed learners are, to me, people that take the initiative and the responsibility for their own education and basically will stop at nothing in order to learn what they're enthusiastic about learning. So let me ask another question. How many of you will ever been in a class where if tomorrow the professor walked in and said, I'm really sorry, there's been a huge administrative mix-up. I can't award you any grades or credit for the rest of this class. But you can still keep coming if you want to. You know that feeling in one of those classes where you would still show up anyway? You're so motivated to learn what it's all about. That's what self-directed learning is to me. That's what it feels like. So today I'd like to tell you a little bit of my own story about how I got to that place for myself and other people who've gotten to that place as well. And some of the people who you might think even went off of the deep end and really took responsibility for their own education in some pretty inspiring ways. And of course, what happens if you do go that route is you start to discover that it's not just about knowing why you're in this class today, but why you're on the path you're on in life in general. I think this might be working. So in 2003, our paths intersect. I showed up here at the University of Virginia. And is that working now? Great, thank you. And I really had no idea what I was going to do. I came because I wanted to study biomedical engineering. The first summer I was here, I worked in a medical research lab. I discovered I didn't like blood. That wasn't such a great idea. I got into behavioral economics. After that, that was a lot of fun. I got to play games in class and even make money occasionally in the process. Then I got really passionate about this idea that everything I was learning in economics had all these things that they classified externalities and like put in another bucket, and those things were actually really important. I got really into the idea of sustainability. I did a lot of exploring while I was here, and I didn't really know where I was going, but I just kept trying different things. And some of my best experiences were things that had nothing to do with what the university provided for me. I was one of the 2 co-founders of the Course Forum, and some of the other experiences that I had here, as a matter of fact, the university told me it was a legal liability and I couldn't pursue it and whatever. Anyway, I did it anyway. And I did that for a little while until after graduation, the kind of bug had bit me of traveling, and I managed to get a job working in corporate sustainability and moved down to Australia. This is seen from campus. You might recognize. Great place for a graduation photo, by the way. And I moved to Australia and started working for a big corporation down there, property company, working on sustainability. Got immersed into the local culture, and I had a really terrible long commute to work every morning, and had a really pretty incredible time doing that. That lasted for a couple of years. It was a great party, and then people got a little bit less interested in building buildings in 2009, so that changed. And I stayed in touch with the Course Forum other co-founder, Jeff, who lives in town, and he was getting pretty burnt out of his work at the same time too, and we decided to revisit that same problem where I started the lecture today, which was we realized how much of our education here at UVA was really just lost hours sitting in lecture halls, and we got really passionate about how we could do some things together to explore what education could really look like in the world outside of universities. And I began onto a path that I really didn't know where it was heading. And it's taken me some pretty incredible places over the couple of years since then. I've gotten to work for summer in Tibet. I started a consulting company. I got really into facilitating social entrepreneurship workshops. I've lived in Berlin. I started a project called Citizen Circles. It was incubated by Ashoka. Some pretty incredible things just started happening, once I gave myself the permission to step out like that. So another story about Jeff. One time, Jeff and I were in Spain together, and we thought it would be a great idea to go for a hike. In the background, you can see Monte Perdido, which is, of course, dangerous mountain, and we thought it'd be a great idea to walk towards that. And so we started walking towards it, and we asked directions from someone, and they said, well, we can tell you how to get there. Just show us your map, and we'll point it out for you. And we said, map? And they said, you're hiking without a map. And so anyway, we finally bought a map. And we walked and walked and walked with this map. And then we eventually came to this wall that the trail told us went straight up the ledge we were now facing in front of us. And we stood facing this wall for a little while before eventually we noticed that there was a little chain kind of running along the edge of this cliff in front of us. And so we figured out that the next step, if we were to follow the map, was to hold on to the chain and kind of lean against the wall and climb up the side of this wall, at the top of which Jeff told me he was extremely afraid of heights, and that we could not go back down the same way we came. And we spent the next 3 days trying to figure out how to get back to where we came from. Not to mention the fact that this was supposed to be a short hike, and all we had with us were some airplane blankets. And so we were playing around on the top of this ledge that you can see for a while, and just thought it was great. Like, we were in t-shirts and shorts and hanging out on the side of this mountain, and we walked across this glacier, and we started picking up ice off of it and throwing snowballs at each other. And we were just thinking, this is kind of crazy, isn't it? Like, it's summer and there's this glacier. Haha, that's so funny. And then the sun went down, and we had these airplane blankets, and we realized how the glacier could still be there in summer after the sun went down. And it was one of the worst nights of my life. And what I want you to get from this story is that the accumulation of all of these stories is that I'm coming to appreciate that in life, there really isn't a path. I would love to be able to tell you that your future will look this way or that way, and if you take this class or that class, or if you put this on your resume or that on your resume, it'll be really helpful in 2 or 3 years from now. But the reality is, no one in this room can tell you what jobs will even be available 4 years from now or 2 years from now. And as Jeff and I discovered, sometimes in life and in many other circumstances, there is no map, and a map wouldn't help you anyway. So when there's no path and there's no map, the only option is to make your own. So I'd like you to open your hands for a moment and look into them. And in your right hand, I'd like you to imagine a red pill. And in your left hand, I'd like you to imagine a blue pill. Got them? Feel the weight of them? See them? Okay. Now just sit with those for a moment. And I want to invite you at this point in the day to leave if you're not interested in hearing some things that might shake your world up. So if you want, after this presentation, you'll have the opportunity to take the red pill. You'll forget everything I've said. You'll forget all the examples. You'll continue safely forward with the rest of your life with the assumption that there is a path and it can be known, and all you have to do is do the right things that other people tell you to do, and then you'll be safe and sound. Of course, if you want as well, you can also take the blue pill, in which case you realize that at the end of the day, there's no one responsible for your path in life except for yourself. And if you want to discover all that life has to offer, it's up to you. And if you really let that sink in, what you'll realize is that from this point forward, the responsibility that you have is to never stop learning and never stop trying. So in the extreme, what that can look like, I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about my own story recently, is that when you feel inspired to take responsibility for your own education, it can start looking some pretty bizarre and non-traditional ways. In February, I hopped on a bus and I went across country looking for innovation in higher education and started making a documentary on the future of higher education. And everywhere we went along this tour, it just blew my mind that there were so many examples of people that we're not doing things the traditional way. One of the things that I remember stood out to me most was Oklahoma City. Oklahoma, any of you all been there? Raise your hand if you've been to Oklahoma. Awesome. Maybe 5 people here. About the same for me. Pretty much Oklahoma represented to us a place to stop in the 26-hour drive between Little Rock and Boulder. I mean, that's really just about as much as we knew about it. And Oklahoma blew my mind. Oklahoma City in particular really blew my mind. I don't know if you know much about Oklahoma, but Oklahoma was basically the national dumping grounds for Indian tribes. So there are 36 sovereign nations that reside in Oklahoma. Oklahoma was basically designated as the place to put them. That was the least valuable land we could possibly stick them on. And it wasn't actually a state until 1907. Oklahoma knows that they basically have a little bit of oil left, and then after that, they have, in terms of natural resources or beauty or anything else like that to rely on, they essentially have nothing. But that's a pretty wonderful thing from another perspective, because that also means that what they have is their people. And they really understand that their future is in educating their people to be as creative about their own future as possible. When Ken Robinson went looking around the world for places that could be a bastion of inspiration and hope about the future of education, he picked Oklahoma City. Not on my map at all. And when I asked them why, they said, well, I think we're one of the few states in the U.S. that really understands that the future is up to us and has that sort of pioneering spirit that tells us that we have to make our own path. From Educate 2020, then I hopped over to Europe for a little while, and I was traveling around doing some work with the Open Masters program that I help organize. It's just being replicated over there right now. And I strangely started hearing the same thing again. Everyone said, there are plenty of things that we love to make fun of about Americans. That's easy. But actually, one of the things that we still have enormous respect for America about is how innovative and creative you all really are. You all seem to have, because you're not so tied down in tradition and culture as we are, you have the permission to be able to do wild and crazy stuff and get away with it, like combine sausage and shrimp in the same dish. And so that really inspired us. All these experiences just started to inspire me to think about what education could look like in general. This is a pirate shop, also known as 826 Valencia in San Francisco, also a tutoring program for high school students run by David Eggers. It's an incredible educational program. Of course, you don't know when you walk in that behind the secret door in this pirate shop is this incredible school. At UC Berkeley, there is an incredible student-led course program called DECAL that's been running since 1967. It was shut down at one point in the 70s because it was too radical. It was brought back. And at any rate, this semester there are 2,000 students taking student-led, student-designed courses for credit in all sorts of topics you can see listed here. This is actually just around the corner. This is the UVA Med School. I didn't know how much medical education was being reinvented right now, but it really is being just radically redesigned. This is the simulator here in the UVA School of Medicine, in which from day one you're thrown into real situations to start to learn through practice. Rachel Thor, who is the project manager for the tour manager for Educate 2020, actually made the project her senior thesis at Penn State. She wasn't really happy with the classes she needed to take her senior year. She started to realize, well, why should I take them? If I'm really passionate about something else, I should make that my education. So she made Educate 2020 her senior thesis, and that's pretty cool. And the more I started scraping at this, I found hundreds and hundreds of people doing this in really creative ways. Victor Saad is a friend who is starting a program called Experience Institute that was inspired by his realization that rather than going to business school, he could cobble together 12 internships or apprenticeships, with different programs and companies that he was interested in learning from, conferences and other things like that, and essentially called that his MBA. Why not? Myself, the path took me a little bit deeper too. As I discovered all of these other self-directed learners, I started noticing that the thing that was missing most for each of them was a sense of community that could hold them accountable and give them support for their process, which is something that universities are really incredible at providing, but especially if you're outside of a university, it takes a little bit more work to create for yourself. And we went back basically to the origin of the university and realized that at the heart of universities in the beginning were self-organized communities of masters and scholars. That's how they started. That's how we got here. And so a group of us in the fall decided to start creating our own graduate school from scratch, where the focus would be self-directed learning, peer-reviewed in small groups. We've been doing that since September. We have 28 people working on this in DC and another small group just about to start in the Netherlands. You can get a sense for all the crazy things people are studying. Some of the common topics are, or some of the common threads of the program are that it seems to be merging all sorts of different disciplines, oftentimes combining crazy different disciplines together. So, for example, social entrepreneurship and Buddhism. So the more I poked, the more I learned as well that as easy as it is to be inspired to take responsibility for your own education, it's even easier to kill your passion for learning in this own way, or in this way. And I wanted to tell you about two of the main ways that the world will try to kill your passion for learning by yourself and how to overcome them. The biggest thing you will most definitely hear at some point if you try to do something that's off of the traditional path is at some point someone will tell you, who's accrediting that? So what do you get from that? I wanted to let my homeboy Seth Godin, who was one of the people we interviewed on the road tour, tell you what he thought about that.
People who are hiring for good jobs don't want to know where you went to school. They don't want to know how you obey. They want to know what you've done. They want to know what you're going to do. And the way you do that is not by showing them a piece of paper that lists brand names, Yale or whatever. It's by showing them a list of projects, by letting them see the projects, by letting them understand the trail you left behind of where you made a ruckus and how you did it. The magic here is really profound, which is that once you find the guts to innovate, once you find the guts to pick yourself, once you find the guts to leave a trail behind, A, people start calling you up because they can see what value you're going to create, and B, you're less likely to want to work for them in the first place because you're already doing something great on your own.
Another problem you will face when you go off the path is that you might get lonely. You might get a little bit exhausted. You might even get frustrated with how hard it is, because when you're trying to direct your own learning and there isn't an easy path to follow, of course you'll fail. And then you'll succeed. And to me, that's really what learning is. There's no way around it. I know exactly what it feels like to push yourself a little bit too hard and to not know what it means to plan your own rigorous learning schedule and then find the limitations of that. But now I know more about my own limitations because of it. So I'll just leave you with one little reflection on if you decide for any reason that you want to do something a little bit off the beaten path with your education, the most important thing, I think, to make sure that you're successful in this journey is to put community and relationships first. It's really easy to focus on what you want to learn. It's a lot harder to keep the relationships around you healthy that are needed to support you through this sort of process. So I just want you to remember how important that is. That being self-directed does not mean that you have to be alone. If you're inspired to take responsibility for your own education in some new and creative ways, you'll be standing on the shoulders of lots of giants who've gone before you that have paved the way and written out different sorts of explanations of what it means to take responsibility for your own education, whether that's within an institution or outside of an institution. I would just encourage you to think deeply about how to be clear about your purpose and how to get the most out of every experience you get. And most importantly, I want you to remember that you already have everything you need. The University of Virginia is an incredible resource, and the city and everyone that you're connected to through both of those things are incredible resources to help you with anything you want to learn. And one of the things I've learned is that just being clear about your intentions starts to bring things to you. So you have what you need. Just broadcast what you want. You'll find all sorts of incredible opportunities as well. You'll hear from another speaker today that will be talking about programs like Hack Cville, Flash seminars. They're great things that you can use that already exist in this community. If you're not learning what you want to learn, don't stop. So I would love to tell you, I could give you a list of things that you should do that will perfectly pad your resume or perfectly structure the path before you. that I can help you get a job if you just do this or you just do that. But I want to give you the opportunity, if you're interested, to walk away from here with this blue pill in your pocket, knowing that you always have the opportunity to pull the ripcord and be clear what it is that you want to learn about, ask for it from the world, and charge ahead full speed. Thank you.